Welcome to episode 56 of the Travel Talk Show, a podcast of the Canada Marketing Group and ehCanadaTravel.com. Just so you know, the Travel Talk Show is beamed down to us live from our Cobro satellite every Tuesday at 7 p.m. from our base camp somewheres here in beautiful Staycation, Canada. This is a live show, people. Stuff happens, like internet goes wonkers. Do not change the channel. Keep your dial on the Travel Talk Show. Please, thank you, and sorry. You got to support Canadian content. So don't change that channel. Tonight, our special guest is Carolyn Childs, futurist, strategist, researcher for the global travel and tourism industries. The Wizard of Oz, our adopted Australian sister in our tourism family, will be joining us in a few crucial minutes. You don't want to miss this. With all the things going on with opening up, you do not want to miss this. So again, internet goes wonky, keep on the channel, listen to the show. You're going to walk away with some very valuable information. As
You're
you know,
higher than me here.
Oh, that's not my problem.
Sorry, I just got to adjust, get us at the same
You're
level.
a little brother, little everything. That's what happens when you're a little brother.
There we go. We're
little
now.
Everything. You're shorter, everything.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Here in Canada, we get our next travel update, much anticipated, on June 15th. That is when we find out what we can do, where we can go, and how we can go, and when we can go. June 15th, Junior, is a big deal here in Canuckland in our tourism industry, eh? Are you excited as much as we are, or what?
I am very excited. I mean, people can finally get out there and enjoy the summer.
Exactly.
It's gonna be great.
Oh, there's so much. There are so many questions to be answered. You know me. I'm nowhere. I'm a little boy in the pen of researching compared to our guests, but I am addicted to the act of researching, and I do take a lot of pride in trying to keep up to speed with how fast this industry is moving. There are so many questions to be answered, Colin. There's like, you know, are we going to be able to travel outside our health zones? When are we going to be able to travel to neighboring provinces and territories? Who's going to open up? How are they going to open? And then there's that, you know, called the international travel, the big elephant in the room. And it's important to us Canucks because we recorded just before COVID 22.1 million international tourists from abroad in 2019. And I know that number will go up because our guest wants to come here. And a lot of our friends overseas in our extended tourism family wants to come here. And we want to host them. So we want to figure out that big question as well. But when it comes up to some serious questions we need to address, there are so many we need to address. What will be the new travel safety protocols? Is it a 2-jab in the arm or bust travel policy? Are we ready for a tourism surge in Canada? Then when they come, first, like, how are they going to come? That's a big question. And then when they do get here, hey man, do we have the staffing to even handle it?
Are we ready? Yeah. And the business is ready to take them on. I mean, a lot of people closed down and.
Our last road trip, we saw so many boarded up things. Do we even have enough supply to meet the demand? And they did a research. It says 2 out of every 3 accommodation businesses here, and it was by StatsCan, here see labor issues as a significant business impediment to post-COVID-19. So 2 out of 3. And here's a fact. Hotel Association of Canada states lack of staffing has hampered growth, attracted less investment, created a significant drop in service, generated higher operating costs, and impacted on mental health. So how will our tourism associations react? Or the big question, will they react? In our region, for example, for you neophytes, you newbies, you people who are just tuning into this wonderful little tourism chit chat on travel, adventure, and everything travel, I'm going to tell you something. In our little region here, the CEO was replaced in the Regional Tourism Association. We've seen a community tourism manager leave his post. We have seen the head of Destination Canada resign and then be replaced. So what do they know that we don't, Col?
Haven't got a clue there, bro.
So
I don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
You know, everything was all orange juice, grape, garlic bread, and high-priced spaghetti before COVID. I mean, they were all on the high horse. Look at me, look at me, look at me. COVID hits, and then we're saying, see you later, see you later, see you later. What went on in that year and a half? So our guest is going to help us with that. Right now, what I'm really hoping there, Junior. I'm super hoping, and you know how I feel about our Canadian tourism industry. I love the industry, not big of fans of who's running it. But have they learned in this pandemic? Are they learning in this pandemic? Is it still numbers and dollar signs, or are they actually going to, care a little bit about what's happening around us? Are they going to take a little bit of compassion?
I got a feeling it's going to go back to the way it was as far as they're concerned.
That's scary.
I can't see, a lot of new things coming from that way. They're going to try and get back to the way it was and try and have it, big piece of the pie.
That's why we're getting asked to be guests on shows. That's why we're winning awards, because you know what? We say what's on our mind. Sometimes it ain't popular, but you know what? We're not going to BS. We're not going to spin it. We say what a lot of people are scared to say. And I think a lot of our friends around the tourism world are experiencing the same thing. We have a lot of talented people in this industry, and they have an immense amount of talent. So I cannot think of a better person to have on this show tonight than our futurist of the tourism industry, our Australian sister of our extended tourism family, and the Wizard of Oz, Carolyn Childs. I'm really excited to have her. But before we bring Carolyn on to wow us, to smash us, to hit us, and to tell us what's going on in this industry from her insights, she's an analytics expert, Colin. She's numbers. She looks, she researches, and then she comes out and she tells it like it is. I love the way Carolyn Childs represents her analytics and her research. It's in your face, it's upfront, and it's no BS. And that's why we want her on the show. And this is Carolyn's second appearance, so she's doing something right there, dude.
It'd be great to have her on again. And yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't wait to hear what her opinions on the industry are, because she is the one with the inside info.
Hey, if I need
the data.
If I need analytics on tourism, I ain't going to anyone here in our country, unfortunately, because I don't think there's anyone here that has what she has. And that's why I like going to her, because even though she's based out in that Oz land and she's being the wizard of stats, when we need something from her, she's more than happy to help us out with a Canada perspective on it. And she's done that on a few occasions. On our last show, she even brought up some really interesting Canada stuff. So I'm excited to have her on the show. My name is Greg Girard. This dashing young man beside me is a keeper of the code, my brother, my partner, my best friend, Junior, aka Colin Girard. Together, we are the Brothers of Tourism. That is a name we've been given. We're going to keep it. You ain't getting it back. That's our name, and we're keeping it. Tonight, we're talking about what the analytics are telling us. Not about spin, not about the trending on social media, not about what's coming out of media, not about what's coming out of tourism associations. No, we're going to deal with numbers, and we're going to get it. We're going to get it translated to us in simple speak. I know our clients, that's what they like, simple speak. They're not big into these big words and complicated algorithms. They want to know it plain and simple so they can make changes, and Carolyn is the one. So we're talking analytics tonight with tourism and futurist extraordinaire, Wizard of Oz, Australian sister of our tourism family, Carolyn Childs of My Travel Research. But first, let me tell you a little news, big news. After COVID, Euronews May 2021 reported predict 2-3 types of trends, and I'm really interested, and these are all positive trends. So I'm not really buying in on some of them, but I think Carolyn's going to tell us yes or no, or maybe on these. The one is the conscious traveler. I'm seeing a heck of a lot of reports that we have a garbage issue in our parks and trails here in Canada. I see a heck of reports that there is tons of environmental damage going on. So this conscious traveler, I ain't buying it really. I think more people are getting outdoors. Yes. More people are discovering adventures. Yes. But more people are disrespecting our environment, our trails, and our park system. And this has to stop. And we're going to say it has to stop. And we believe it should stop. The other one, a universal hunger for wide open spaces. Yes, I agree. We're not going to look for those 2x2 apartment condos in downtown Toronto, Winnipeg, or Halifax. That's going to be a struggle. We're seeing it in our hotels, 30% occupancy, some 60%, some are higher, depending depending on location. Time spent in the wilderness is felt to be an antidote to the modern urban life. That's one thing this COVID has done, is it's built up this big urban life monocule bubble, whatever you want to call it, and people are looking to break through that glass. More trips will take on multiple locations. I like that idea. I think that is very smart to travel that way. Occur at a slower pace. Yes, and I know our friend Caroline and also our friend at Low Season Traveler would love that. And as much more journey, it's part of the journey more than just the destination. People are going to enjoy the ride to there. They're going to take more time getting here. We'll see. They will seek out hotels. Here's the third one they said at this Euro News. They will seek out hotels and travel companies that are doing everything they can to minimize the impact on the planet. I think a percentage will. I still don't think there's a big enough percentage that are out there that will do that. I think it's a concern. I think it's an education process that we need to embark on, is teaching people who aren't used to outdoor adventure travel how to do it correctly.
I think a lot of that is really wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, because like you say, I mean, come down to it, I mean, most people aren't concerned with the hotel or resort's environmental impact from what I've seen.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about this. Yep, go ahead.
Hopefully that's changed, somewhat, but I can't see a rapid shift.
Nope.
But respect your environment and do it for sure.
Yeah, we got to. Who better to help us sort through this noise than our guest, Carolyn Childs of My Travel Research. Let me tell you about this fabulous Australian sister of ours. She's a futurist, a strategist, and researcher for global travel and tourism industries from Sydney. She's based in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. She's an advisory panel member and consulting partner for the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage. Carolyn Childs is a marketing guru consultant who has worked on a wide variety of projects and working with multiple national airlines, international tourism organizations, destinations including national, state, and regional tourism organizations around the world, and commercial businesses of a wide variety. This lady knows her stuff.
What a great friend to have.
Yes, exactly. I'm taking Carolyn Childs to my next research fight. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking her. I'd bring her to war with me on a research fight any day.
We got to get her out here and take her out kayaking.
Yeah. Only if she wears that hat again, though.
I'm sure she'll oblige. Yeah, for sure.
Through the MyTravelResearch.com premium travel trend subscription service, Carolyn and her team help tourism businesses and destination managers grow their visitor economy by delivering evidence-based insights. Now, that's very important. And if you could see it, it's bold here on my little cheat sheet. Evidence-based, not hoo-ha, not internet trending, not a hashtag. This is a lot more than that. Caroline is going to share some insights and strategies that help travel and tourism successfully navigate these extraordinary times. And that's why, with things opening up, who better to have here than a futurist, somebody who's looking at these trends. And there's been a heck of a lot of trends in the last 16 months, I'll tell you. Right. So here we go.
Everything's been a trend there, bro.
Everything. Everything. There's a lot happening. And who better to have than the Wizard of Oz? So what we need to do is we need to put our hands together. We need to give some sister love to our tourism member, our family, our cousin, our adopted sister, Miss Carolyn Childs, and we will bring her on the show. And here we're trying to pull her out of the green room because she really likes that Canadian Bannock stuff. So we're really trying to get her out of there. So here she comes to join us on the screen. Hello there, Carolyn Childs.
Hello, my little brothers, and bonjour, Canada. Good morning, Canada. Good evening to you. And it's wonderful to be back with you. I'm going to have to talk a little bit less rah-rah than usual because I'm sat in a public space because my previous meeting overran. But we'll still talk, we'll still have fun, and it's fabulous to see all those wonderful maple leaves. I'm pleased to see, I think if anything, have they been breeding in a quiet corner somewhere? Because there seem to be more maple leaves each time I look.
Yeah. Never have too many.
We're breeding a maple leaf colony is what we're doing here. This is
working on a maple leaf beard. I don't know how that'll work.
Well, that works. That's okay. You do look a little bit, what do you call it, lumberjackish lately there, dude.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yes.
Manly, I like to term it.
No, manly. Yeah, okay.
Manly.
Caroline, we're so happy to have you for your second appearance. It's too long in actuality. It's been too long because basically we could be having you almost every 3 months with all the trends that have been showing up. So maybe you can, for those people who are new to the show, who will be watching it tomorrow and for weeks to come, give them a little bit of a rundown on who is Carolyn Childs and mytravelresearch.com, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. I'd be delighted to. I think you pretty much said everything, though, Greg. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to add. You mentioned I'm based in Sydney, Australia. I'm actually a Possie. So I was born in the UK and moved to Canada, moved to Australia about 20 years ago. And we like to think that's Possie as in positive. So mytravelresearch.com, you pretty much said it. Our job is to help people just make better decisions, be more confident in their decisions. And that's never really been more important. And what we do is we bring back evidence. I always get nervous when people use words like analytics, because what I always remember is behind every analytics is a person. Every statistic, every percentage about what people think, feel, and do is a person or people. So really what I think of myself as being in doing is understanding and interpreting people. And that's what we do. So
okay,
let's talk.
That works for me. So currently, let's get to some hard questions. And you know our concept here, Karen. We like to tackle really serious issues. We like people to be upfront and honest, as you are always. But we're not really big into the spin, which is why we're excited to hear what you've been delving into with all your assignments as we've been hunkered down behind walls for 6 months. So currently, travel restrictions are being updated here in Canuckland on June 15th. However, there are some big concerns going through our media, through our social medias, emails, on the front line, lacking impending skills. There's impending skill shortage and there's labor shortage. 2 out of 3 of the large resorts say we don't have the staff to manage what's coming down the pipe. So we are sort of anticipating a tourism surge, which many countries are. Yet our international borders are closed, so we can't have staff to manage our resorts or our high-end tour companies. So what should we do? What are we supposed to do with this conundrum?
Well, I think it's interesting, Greg. And, you know, when we catch up and we chat, one of the things that we do see is actually you're not alone. We have businesses who are cutting shifts, cutting opening hours here in Australia. It's the same I was in New Zealand last month. Same thing there. We're seeing it globally all over the world. We've depended on migrant workers. We've depended on our international students. We've depended on our international workers coming in. You know, I think you can ski a long way in Whistler and not meet an Aussie. You know, pretty much every lift is manned by an Aussie or a Kiwi. So, and, you know, I note that 2/3 of numbers that you mentioned, people talking about this labor shortage. And the thing about that was actually a problem before. You know, about 5 years ago, Deloitte Access Economics here in Australia pointed out that there were 46,000 tourism vacancies in Australia.
Wow.
So I think the big problem we've got is I think we've been talking about this problem for about 20 years. But here's the thing, we just don't pay people enough. And we're too dependent on a workforce that can be switched off like that and that there's going to be competition for. So if I look at that and I say we need to be thinking about how we can do things better. How can we structure the way we work? How can we create careers? How can we create security for staff? You know, currently we went from a situation where people were expected to work on kind of 0 hours contracts, and they've kind of moved into a world where suddenly they're being offered a home to come and move to a region. You know, we're talking about flying students, international students in, quarantining them for 2 weeks in Australia so that they can then man our universities, come out and work in our labor force. But what happened when the pandemic hit, I mean, I don't know about in Canada, but foreign students didn't actually get, they didn't get JobKeeper allowance, as those of us who worked in the community where they weren't eligible for that. People had their hours, their jobs just disappeared overnight. So, you know, I think we talk a lot in tourism about social license. I don't know what industry in the world has a license to expect people to work for it, particularly in a job where they're required to be enthusiastic, engage with people, be charming, funny, witty, engaging. But we don't think they're entitled to earn a decent living. And, you know, I know now you have dartboards all over Canada with small tourism businesses going, we just can't afford it. Well, I think we have to actually ask ourselves, if we can't afford to pay people enough money to pay their rent and feed their kids, I'm not talking about luxuries, pay their rent, feed their kids, we have to question whether our business model is right.
Very good.
And I think we have to be looking at things like, you know, there's a lot of talk about technology, but technology is quite fuel intensive. It will be part of the thing. But I think we actually have to be looking at things like productivity. So I'm just going to mention a fun little business based up in Queensland, Australia, called Summerland Camels. And they are a camel that they, a fun fact that your listeners in Canada might not know is Australia has, I think, something like 1 million feral camels wandering around our outback.
Wow.
They are the most genetically pure, infection-free. We export camels to the Middle East. How cool is that?
Wow.
So they take some of these feral camels and they turn them into a dairy product, where they take their milk. Camel milk is incredibly nutritious, extremely good for you, and they make camel cheese. And now their business, their camel cheese, you know, camel rides, camel attractions, a farm shop that they visit, and they said to me what they've accessed in their cafe, and they can now serve three sittings in the time that they used to do two, without any of their guests feeling or recognizing anything's different. And that kind of simple innovation is what any small tourism business can do. Just sit down and look at your processes and say, how can we do things differently? That might be technology. It might be about bringing in technology. It might be about managing your staff differently. I'd also say sit down and have a conversation with your staff. There's a heap of research, academic and professional, that shows frontline staff know a ton of shit about how to do things better. And we never find out because we never ask them.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, you know, just sit down with your staff and do this. They get it. They understand. Often your best staff, and we need to be looking at seriously giving people career paths. We talk about it, but we don't, you know, apart from anything else, you know, we all use these phrases like workforce planning. I'm like, well, maybe if we actually said this is about people, we're a people business. What is the technology doing to free the people? Another great example is right now you can get a robot barista to make your coffee. What's interesting about that is in a blind tasting, the robot coffee tastes better. In a test where you know you're tasting coffee made by a robot versus coffee made by a barista, the barista coffee tastes better.
Interesting.
So what if a robot is making sure you can process, you know, the coffee queue that we're all used to, because I know Canadians love their coffee as much as Australians do. What if that's doing that? Meanwhile, the barista is there talking about the beans, talking about how they set it. So you see a face, you're having that human interaction, you're getting through 4 times as many coffees because a robot can do that. That's what robots are good at. What they're not good at is that human interaction, that thing that gives us, literally, it tastes better when a human makes it.
I read once, Caroline, one of the things that has amazed you, and this is it's a good segue here, is one of the things that has amazed you as we reset tourism around the world is how little the views of the people in the communities have on delivering the future have been taken into account. Or like, what's going on there? How can we be developing tourism when there's a disconnect with the actual foundation of tourism, which is people and communities? How does that work?
I don't know, when I find the final answer to that, Greg, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm not ever going to need to work again. But it's interesting because project after project, when I put proposals together, I write this big section in on community consultation, and that's the bit that always gets dialed down. And it's our community. We can't ask. People are scared of asking their community. And this question came up. I went to Trends in New Zealand, which was an absolutely fabulous event this year. we had a big workshop, and a lot of talk about this idea of social license. And you'll notice I might have a brain the size of a planet, but if my picture wavers, it's because I'm very, very bad at holding an iPad. And what interested me and what struck me about this is as tourism business, we often tend to talk, or destinations, we often tend to talk about the community as an other. You know, the community needs to get why we're so important. Now, this was trends, so 700 tourism people together in one place in New Zealand, which was absolutely a fabulous thing to do, an amazing event. And I turned around and said, okay, I'll look around from the stage and said, how many people here don't live in a community? Now in Canada, that's a nervous question, because there's going to be one of your listeners who sat like, you know, thousands of miles from anyone. But at the end of the day, we all live in communities. So we need to stop thinking of the community as other. We need to see the community as the center and us as part of the thing that radiates around that, and to start behaving like that tourism is part of the community, not we are outside the community and the community needs to get why we're so important to them. Because we keep, you know, I could probably guess that every single destination in Canada and every single local government area, or whatever you call them over there, has a page where they talk about how many jobs are created by tourism, what the economic benefit is, all of those billions of numbers. Well, we've had those for 20, 30 years. Has it worked? No. So, you know, the old thing about the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing. We need to have a different conversation. We need to sit down and we need to stop looking at the community as a problem to be solved, and just ask and just have it as a conversation. Sorry, I'm going to wobble around here. Have it as a conversation where we kind of start to take that through. And you know, somebody who is one of the gurus of this space, Anna Pollock, I've nakedly stolen the idea that she talks about tourism as, you know, we see communities as a resource like a mine, and we come in and strip mine it.
Yes. I think that's so true.
And we need to stop thinking about it like that. We need to say, who owns the rights to do this? So, you know, we use this phrase social license, but who gives license? The person who gives license is the person who has permission to give license. So we have to stop thinking we're the ones who have permission to tell the community things. They actually have to turn it round and say, you know, let's have a conversation about what this looks like and what are the trade-offs you're making. So if the community is saying we don't want tourism, we actually, instead of saying, well, you know, this is this many jobs, we need to be humanizing this, which is, this means your kids don't need to leave your community to get a job.
Yep. It's bang on. I mean, if we present it to them on the benefits of the community opposed to the benefits of the traveler, I think we get a lot farther ahead. Why? Okay, so then if that's the case, why is the tourism industry not taking this opportunity where they've had 16 months where they could have flicked the switch? They could have taken a very responsible, very popular choice. We could have reestablished the industry. So why aren't they taking this opportunity to reset seriously? Why aren't they jumping on this like an opportunity opposed to a challenge? Where is that?
Because we're humans, and we are wonderful, amazing, terrible, frustrating, all of those things. That's why when you talk to me about analytics, I always say analytics is numbers. It's very, very hard to say to people you've got to change. It was hard to get people to change when business was booming and numbers were there. And now we've got the opposite problem. It's hard to change when you're sitting there going, do you still have a business?
Yeah.
In 6 months. In actual fact, really, we should have made that change before, but no one was listening then. So now I think we do have to make that change now, when we've got that situation of being able to say, well, we can't do things the way we were, because you know what, actually, you may remember that through my work with WeTech, we worked on a series of talks, about keeping the dream alive. And one of the things that struck me through the 12 or 13 episodes of that was, actually, things weren't that great before, but we were so busy we didn't notice that they weren't that great before. You know, we had over tourism. We had, we talk about the airline industry. I used to work in the airline industry for their trade association. I think the airline industry has 8 good years. And those 8 good years, no other sector would consider the return on investment that you put into an airline to be good. You wouldn't, if a tech company came to you and said that level of return on capital was there, you wouldn't give them a dime. You know, you look at the way we handle crisis, you look at this issue of community, you look at environmental degradation, you look at all of those things. They were all there before. All that happened as the pandemic gave us a chance. You know, actually, you could see the attractions in Delhi through this because there was no smog. But we got tired. We've got so tired. I mean, I know the same. I feel the same. I'm not talking about, again, this is not another. This is me as well. We're all tired, and it's preventing us. We're letting that block our thinking about this, and we're letting voices that can sometimes be very self-interested. You know, when we talk about opening up to tourism. I've been tracking the numbers. Some excellent colleagues in the US destination analysts have been tracking, who wants to travel and who wants people coming into the community in the US for about a year now. And there's a consistent 5 to 10 percentage point gap there. So, we want to go to other people's communities, but we're far less sure we want them to come to us. Now,
exactly.
This is a phrase, apparently it was an ad campaign by TomTom about 10 years ago, where they said, if you're stuck in traffic, remember you aren't stuck in traffic, you are the traffic. And I think that's what we have to see. You know, we don't want people coming to our communities. Well, that means we are the traffic. So we need to change that.
But here's what I'm really scared of. Say in our backyard, we have a very hot spot that's it's called Tofino. And it's like massive beaches. It's very, very, very popular on non-tourism. My regular population, I think, is 300 to 500 people, if that, maybe 700 people. When tourism comes in, it balloons to 10 to 20,000 people. And now what's happening, we're seeing on the pre-domestic tourism trends, people domestically are now flocking to like a handful of places. So everyone says, I've never been to Tofino. They've lived here. Now's the chance. Now they're all flocking to Tofino. And what we're having is now we are creating a domestic over tourism market in our hotspots. So how, again, it's that whole adage of the double-edged sword. You want it, but then you don't. But then now you want it. It's too much. So how do you put stopgaps on that? How do you control that?
Well, I think the first thing you do is you actually understand, or you agree as a community, how many tourists you want. And then you plan around that. And you also plan, I mean, you've talked, I know you had Jed from Low Season Traveller on a couple of weeks ago. So that's spreading through the season, getting people to travel at different seasons is the first stage of that. That's a hard long-term job, but it is possible if you do that. And Jed is doing great work in that area. The other is, how do we then start talking about using the things we know about the way human beings' minds work to get them to go to other places? Because it's funny, everyone wants to go off the beaten track. Everyone's a traveler, not a tourist. But everyone ends up going to Angkor Wat, to the destination you just mentioned, because we need to be spending more time with, if you like this, do that. Netflix do that. So we need to do that well. They do that well. So if you like this, you do that. And the reports are often, they're generally, most of what you'll find is quite predictable. And when they stray too far from that, people stop watching, so they change it. So I think that's where we need to be saying, how do we get people to do that, and actually start talking to them about doing it that way, and start, because people will sit there and go, oh yeah, it was lovely, but it was so crowded. And it's like, again, you are the crowds. Yes. So it's, where are the places where, I think really talking about where are the places where your tourism dollars are really welcome and you're going to have a great experience. And I did want to have a shout out on all of the stuff we've been talking about to the guys you work with out at Nicola Valley, because you guys are really killing it. You are just doing it so right.
Oh, and they're going to love that.
Right on. Yeah, for sure.
I just have to shout out, because ever since we started talking and I started watching what they were doing, really that's community from the heart. It's people talking, people from the community leading it. And it's bringing people. I mean, I don't know anything about Nicola Valley. I didn't even know there was such a place in Canada before this. But I want to go now. And when borders open, guys, I'm coming. Because I really get the sense that this is a community where I'm going to come in, and all that stuff that's often bullshit about live like a local.
Yep.
I really get the feeling that if I go to Nicola Valley, I'm going to live like a local.
You are always welcome here, and we will treat you like the Wizard of Oz that you are. So there's no problem there. Here's one of the things that we've been hearing through the tourism grapevine is numbers are based on hotel beds. How does that work? You want to control over tourism, but you got some places that have overabundance of hotel beds that are sort of pushing the over tourism aspect. How do you combat that? You can't have your numbers lower than your beds, because then everyone freaks out.
Well, probably there's two stages to that. One is that how many people do you want, and then you plan your tourism. I'm going to try and see if I can move and get some more light on this. How many people do you want, and then you build your hotels. And that's where I think the big problem here is joined up tourism planning. Again, tourism planning tends to sit in one place, and we build these hotels, and then suddenly we realize we don't have the sewage for them. So this is where that more really the move now is to more design thinking in this, which is again recognizing tourism is part of a wider community. And I don't think you should be allowed to be, if we need to be looking at it back at that higher level. The second thing then I look at is if you've got that situation where you've got too many beds for the capacity of the rest of the destination to do stuff, actually you need to start saying, well, look, how do we build people out of that? How do we help people to do different things? I mean, I'm guessing in most of the places that you're talking about, you've got, if it's anything like Australia, you've got a huge homelessness problem. You've got a huge housing affordability program.
Yep.
Why are we not helping people, convert some of those spaces and use them? During the pandemic, we saw here in Australia, we opened up some of our hotels to homeless people. Now, the feedback from people who hosted those homeless people were they were the best guests ever.
Wow.
Some of these
wow.
Right on.
And you know what? But then that ended. And I sit there and go, well, we have most of our major cities in countries like, desirable countries like Canada and Australia. Why don't we solve this? We're wealthy countries. We have money. Why don't we look and say, well, how do we deploy those resources in other ways?
Yeah.
And, not in an anti-business sense, but helping those businesses transit. What if there was a section of those hotels that was given over that social license and the city paid them? There might be some guests who didn't want that, but gee, I'd love to stay in a hotel like that. And I was thinking about this, knowing we were going to be talking about this. And I remember a few years ago, we ran an event and we did it at the Salvation Army's. They have some meeting rooms they allowed out, and we did it there. And they have a program where they train disadvantaged young people to be baristas.
Okay.
And
cool.
You know what? Just again, that thing about it tastes better when you know the barista. How good did the coffee taste where you knew that you were giving a young person a better life?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
bango, bongo, right?
Yeah. And that's also something I notice a lot with all of the talk about tourism, workforce shortages. This came up, I was at the conference further up, but, our beautiful mid-north coast, quick shout out to the guys in Port Macquarie, who I love. And we were all talking about this problem. And I walked around town because this is evidence too. And I looked at the ads, and there were ads all over town for jobs. And every single one said experience needed. Now, if you're chasing a very small pool, you've got two choices. Either you do have to stop paying people a lot more, or you actually have to invest in training people. And we hire for experience and qualifications, not skills and abilities. And, realistically, how long is a barista training? I think it's, a week, 2 weeks. Seriously, there are people out there who would benefit from that ability to do that. So why aren't we going to, you have a federal structure like us, our federal government, our state governments, or in your case, provincial governments, and looking at workplace training that would enable us to work with some of those people. Similarly, many areas of Australia, we have very high youth unemployment, 25%. I've done focus groups with young people looking for workforce. They want secure, well-paying jobs. It's absolute bullshit. They want to hop to job. They do that because those are the only jobs they can get.
Okay.
they want to stay and work with, the bit that is true is they want to work with businesses that they care about, that inspire them, that are doing things for the environment. The other thing, and this is maybe a good one for us to bear in mind, boys, because we ain't getting any younger, we totally ignore a workforce that is ready, willing, and able to work, which is our aging populations.
Yes.
We hear these stories of people who get into their 50s, you lose their job, they'll take any job, and they've often got great life skills, they've got great social skills. And we 70-year-olds today have the cognitive powers of 50-year-olds 30 years ago. Most of us are not on defined benefit pensions. I'm probably going to, I work in tourism. I'm going to have to work till I drop, till the glue factory lorry arrives.
Yeah, you and me both. We'll be at the same stretcher glue factory.
And so I look at that and I'm like, why are we not looking at and training some of those people? And instead of looking at it and saying, oh, we want young people, or we want this age group, or we want these qualifications, why aren't we thinking about and framing this problem differently? Most of what we have, two things. One is a framing problem, is we think it's got to be a bad experience, when actually, I've trained dozens of market researchers and researchers and strategists over the years. And I always say, I can give them any skills. The one thing I can't give them is curiosity, because you can't do my job unless you're intensely curious about the world. And, I then have to work out whether they're a quali or a quanti or an analytics person or whatever. But that's the bit that you cannot change, is that. So we need to be thinking about those things. And really, a lot of what's going on in tourism, we have a crisis of configuration. This is a phrase somebody on behavioral scientist, which is a great, if you love this kind of stuff, sign up for behavioral scientist. It's best practice shit. Okay. And they talked about a crisis of configuration, because again, that wonderful annoying thing that we as human beings are, we have all the skills, we have all the capabilities, we have all the tools to make a better world, but we haven't put them together right. So let's pull it apart and go back to first principles. Sit down and ask yourself those questions about your business. Heard a fabulous talk by the head of Intrepid Travel talking about how they did their pivot to domestic. In 30 countries, they suddenly shifted from taking people to other countries to taking to their own. And she said they went back and they sat in a room and they stripped everything back to their bare essentials. And then they did something called scenario planning, which I think we don't do in tourism anywhere near enough. And they said they looked at their worst case scenario and they really stress tested that. So not kind of, I don't want to think about that. What's really the worst case scenario? And her advice was, if your worst case scenario is you don't have a business, it's better to give up early, because we know humans are lots of us. We hate to admit we've made a mistake. But, there's nothing, particularly in the middle of a pandemic, there's nothing dishonorable in saying, I can't make this work, I'm walking away.
And apparently there's people that are doing that with their businesses. It's just getting to be, and it is a sort of a reality situation where we did live high on the hog here in Canada for many years there, where tourism was, you didn't even have to, tourism was selling itself here for quite some time. We didn't need all this extra, it was selling itself, just word of mouth, just of how wonderful our outdoors are. So that brings us to one of the questions is that right now, because the whole playing field has changed, we're getting we have 13 provinces and territories. Every single one of them has a different message. Every single one of them has a different opening, a different plan. There are so many hidden agendas, which we don't hear until it's either a whistleblower or it comes out through the media or something like this sort. So who are our real high value tourism markets? Who are they right now?
Well, again, this is a career decision, but I think tourism amazes me as, almost every other industry, the regular customers, the ones who sit there quietly, who turn up every day, are the valued customers. In tourism, we're always pursuing these, these big spenders. Now, two quotes, not mine, I can't remember. I think it was Kim McKay from ClickX Communications said this. If you want to be poor, work for rich people.
I like that.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so now I know because we had this conversation a little bit when we chatted last year, boys, but, you know, in Australia, 78 cents in the dollar is spent by domestic tourists. And, you know, your local tourists, the people who come year after year after year, they're really valuable and they're really loyal and they'll be there when the times are tough. So I think we need a better appreciation and curiously, even more in Canada where your number is lower. Why is it lower? You know, people fly from all over the world. You know, people sit in India, in Australia. We want to come to Canada. Why is it that only, or I think you said, was it 30, 40 cents in the dollar is domestic?
I think it was running around that, yeah.
You know, why is that? Why is it that you're standing? So I really think we need to be looking at that. And one particular market that I'm very, very passionate about that we almost totally ignore in tourism, visiting friends and relatives. You will have seen, as I have, all of the research about when people said when lockdowns end, as things come out, who are we going to see? We're going to see, you know, my little brothers in Canada. We're going to be doing that stuff.
Yes.
And here is the thing. Now, this is where the problem with one very dominant voice in tourism is accommodation. And often there's this perception that VFR visitors don't stay in accommodation. That's actually not necessarily true. Between 25 and 40% of visiting friends and relatives, visitors stay in paid accommodation when they come. It might be an Airbnb, but they stay in paid accommodation. Certainly in Australia, those are the stats. And that's because families, you know, in my post about today, I talked about Meet the Modern Family. Families ain't what they used to be. I love my family, but particularly if I'm coming from a long way or if my family are coming to me from a long way, you know, they're with you a lot. We've all got used to, as human beings, having a lot more space in countries like Canada and Australia. So, you know, quite often they're staying in paid accommodation. And often they want to do things together, but very few places actually do a great job of marketing to encourage people who are hosting to do that. Now, interestingly, here in New South Wales, where I'm based, they saw some research we did on this back in 2014 and did their own research with hosts that built on some of the host research we'd done. Hosts on average spend, I think, 20-30% more than visitors to welcome people.
Wow. Okay.
So, and that's totally invisible in the majority of our tourism stats.
Yes, totally invisible.
And they would do more. What we heard in our research was people would do more. Two things. One, if they knew more. So, for example, I don't know what you call your welcome centers or your visitor information centers. US calls them welcome centers, and that's a great name because a visitor information center, the framing is it's for visitors, whereas locals were like, "Ooh, am I going to be welcome if I walk in there?" So, you know, what is it that you're encouraging people to do? And the second thing is, you know, see these people as part of your marketing. So make it so it's either not too expensive or ideally free if they're bringing visitors. Bath in the UK does this. Local residents, you don't pay to go into attractions. Alaska actually has a visiting friends and relatives pass card as well. We shout out, big shout out to the neighbors, your neighbors in Alaska on this. And what we saw was some destinations here in Australia, like Southern Highlands, which is a beautiful area just south of Sydney. They took this and really embraced it, and they saw their numbers go through the roof. They saw their spend go through the roof, and they actually ran their advertising campaign was a campaign aimed at locals. My Heart Lives Here. Google My Heart Lives Here Southern Highlands if you want to see it. It's absolutely beautiful. And they got local people, again, a bit like what Nicola Valley are doing. They got local people to come out and talk about, you know, what they loved about the Southern Highlands. And they gave them assets to invite their visitors, and they invited them there. Great example. Another great example here, Paranella Park, which is a very hard to describe attraction in northern Queensland. It sits in the cyclone belt. It's been destroyed 3 times by cyclones, and each time it not only comes back, but it actually continues a continued growth rate in terms of being a profitable destination.
Okay, cool.
You pay once in a year to go to Paranella Park.
We have nothing like that out here, Carl. Do you know anything
And
like
you
that
go
out
as
here?
often as you want.
Yeah.
Wow.
All we got is a year-round membership at a ski resort or a golf club. I mean, that's basically as far as we're going.
Yeah, but that's at a price. You know, that's thousands of dollars, isn't it? Or hundreds of dollars. This is like the entry price on the day, but the ticket is valid for a year for as many times as you want to go.
I love that idea. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
I mean, everybody's bring your relatives over, whoever visits. They're all going to visit.
They still have to stay in an accommodation. They still have to go out and eat. They still have to, you know, buy all those souvenirs.
Well, and the interesting thing is, so they get people. So what happens is your locals come. So your locals will sit there and go, I'll go and have a coffee there. Mm-hmm. You know, in the cyclone season, there's still a local population. They take their visitors there. And, you know, as someone now, my go-to example on this, because it's actually free to do, is the tour of Parliament House here in Australia. I've done that tour so many times with friends and relatives from overseas. I think I could bloody lead the tour.
Yeah.
Nice.
So now I will go and say, I'll meet you at the gift shop because I'll buy them presents there. So that's my second one. I'll go and sit in the cafe in Parliament House. And by the way, this is cool because this is one of the very few places in the world where you can park for free for 2 hours under our Parliament. So big shout out to the guys at Parliament House because it's an amazing, and it's a fun experience. It's a very unique building. But again, the more you facilitate that, and we heard this really clearly, people going, oh, you know, I'd love to go with my friends and family, but I visited this attraction 6 times and you want me to pay the same every single time. And one guy even came and said, look, I accept I might have to pay, but what if I did a deal where my first visit was full price, my second visit was 10% off, and it got down to the point that the 7th time I took somebody in a year, it was free for me.
Yeah.
Think how many more people would come.
That's a really good idea.
Often in tourism, we look at the money that we are getting and we don't see the money that we aren't getting. What are you giving away?
Yeah. And that is basically hitting bang on that a poor marketing of our domestic tourism market of thinking up programs that are going to work on that. We're sort of forced into looking at those. Those are brilliant examples. I like that example. I think that would go over well in a lot of places here. One of the things you mentioned there, Caroline, is this word called VUCA. And we all know how I can say that word if I really concentrated, but it's not spelt how you think. It's V-U-C-A, and it means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So, Caroline, tell us about this new word.
I don't know it's a new word, and it's certainly not my word, but you know what? Hey, good writers borrow and great writers steal, huh? And for me, probably because I actually love an idea of a world that's complex and ambiguous, and that's why I do what I do for a living. But I know most people find that absolutely terrifying. Mm-hmm. But here's the tough thing. Our world was already that beforehand. Our world was changing so fast. But the pandemic has kind of dialed that up. And that's the thing, I think, if I say talk to businesses now, I'm going, okay, to me, your number one strategies about how you get through this and how you recover are that you are planning for a world that looks like that. That we stop saying, no, I just want to think, you know, you were saying all the right things, guys, when I was listening in the green room and trying to avoid the screech. all of that stuff. You know, you were talking about this idea of, we just want things to go back to normal. We shouldn't want things to go back to normal because actually normal wasn't perfect either.
Exactly.
But it's not going to go. It's going to be at least 3 years before vaccination levels kick through, that we start to see these outbreaks that, you know, and the interesting thing is two paradoxical things are true. We're all in this together, but some of us are deeper in the doo-doo than others. So, you know, the Melbourne lockdown was one person who opened their room in their hotel quarantine next to a room with someone who was infected for 18 seconds.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
And here's the better thing. That person was in South Australia, went home to Melbourne, and when the virus broke out, South Australia shut the border on them. But our world is going to look like this for a while, and you can sit here and have a nervous breakdown, or you can embrace it and plan for it. And the first and most important of those things is taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Thinking about, not in a selfish way, shut out the world way, but having systems that are in place for mental health, working together as tourism communities to support one another, all of those things. So we need to be doing that. And we need to always have, we talked about if your business isn't viable, we need to be making sure that we've got better early warning signs on when is it time to think about an exit strategy? When is it time to kick up? And having plans that can change, instead of them, so the 3-year marketing plan now, you've got to, actually I just did want to say big shout out to Tourism Australia here. They've got a plan that's designed to duck in and out. So they've got the big picture plan. It looks like this. Mm-hmm. But all of us, the people we buy our media from, all of us are going to have to get used to a world where we're going to have to change things on a knife edge, because that great restart campaign might look, with some very witty lines, some of those lines might suddenly look really, really bad. And we can all think of ad campaigns that do that 3 months, 6 months in, or when something hits out of the blue. Yeah. So that's where I think learning to embrace a world where, embrace the VUCA world rather than being VUCA'd by it.
Yeah, I like it. VUCA'd.
Yeah, is what we need to be thinking about. And actually, for me, I love complexity. One of my big problems is most of my clients don't, so I have to dial down my love of complexity to them. But that is the way the world is going to look from now. So it's got to be... There's a very famous thing in biology called the Red Queen strategy, which is from Alice Through the Looking Glass, where, Alice stops running with the Red Queen, and they've been running for ages. And she said, but we haven't gone anywhere. And the Red Queen says, well, no, we haven't. And Alice said, but in my world, if you run very hard for a long time, you generally end up somewhere. And the Red Queen turns around and said, yours is a very slow world. Well, we're now in the Red Queen's world, and we're going to have to run very hard in the same place. So making sure that you're, doing the equivalent, you don't go out and run a marathon with no training. We need to be training to be robust, resilient, in ourselves, strong, passionate about our businesses, clear about our purpose and what we're here to do, and collaborative. So stop looking at, I see this all the time in tourism all around the world. The hotel or motel across the road from yours is not your biggest problem. Your biggest problem is who's coming down the road. Get them into the destination, then work together to work out who's your customer and better for you and who's better for them. Exactly. So really, really having and thinking about your frameworks on an assumption, because here's the thing, the world is that the you in that, the uncertain, the world is less uncertain if you've planned for uncertainty. It's that weird thing that the more you prepare for things, the less that they are those things, the less that your fears happen. And if you accept it and you deal with it, it's going to be easier to do it. And none of it is easy. Life is a bitch. Working in tourism is a big bitch, frankly.
No, it's absolutely. Experience Nickel Valley heard you all the way from Australia. They've come online and they're saying hello, Caroline. So you've reached them in the Nickel Valley. And just for all of you newbies out there and first-time viewers, we have been putting Caroline's social media. If you look on the bottom right of the corner is her email. She encourages, she'll accept and encourage all emails. She loves to hear from new people. By all means, please give her a call. We've also been putting up her LinkedIn and Twitter. If you're comfortable in those formats, you can get a hold of her. And most importantly, her travel website, mytravelresearch.com. We've been sharing that all episode. By all means, check it out. It's a source of great information. If you're in the industry, you're doing your community, your business, and yourself a disservice if you don't take a look at this. And I know Caroline would welcome any type of questions or conversations. I'm sure I'm not far off there, Caroline.
No, I no longer solely describe myself as a researcher, but researchers are all tarts. We love to talk to people. We love to get out and chat to people.
Excellent. Okay. So, Caroline, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know we've had a whole bunch of people who tuned in that have said, great to see you again, Caroline. So they came to watch your 2.0 version. Is there anything, Caroline, before we let you go, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience that maybe we missed on, or something that you take dear to your heart that you'd like to discuss?
Take care of yourselves. That's probably my number one message. Start with you. Take care of yourself. Plan for the shit that we're in. And ask questions. Be curious. Be open to new ideas. And good luck.
Excellent. Okay, Canada, we love you there, Caroline. We're going up. We can't wait to have you back for 3.0.
I can't wait too.
The Wizard of Oz, everyone. Wizard of Oz, mytravelresearch.com, our Australian sister in our extended tourism family. This woman is incredible. We encourage you to follow her on Twitter, LinkedIn, and to reach out to her on mytravelresearch.com. Thank you, Caroline, for your wisdom and your insight. Canada loves you, and Canada says thank you very much.
Bonsoir. Good night, Canada.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you go,
Wow.
Junior. That was, again, our guest, Carolyn Childs of mytravelresearch.com. And I forgot to mention, too, that we built up this beautiful set for Caroline because she does travel research for all over the world. So we put a nice globe there for her. We made it a little zippy and brighty and sunshiny because that is who she is. We were glad to have her. What do you think they're called? With Caroline Childs of My Travel Research. Did you get a lot out of there?
I don't think I said anything the whole show because I was so in tune to what she had to say. I mean, what great advice.
You know what?
Great tips. I mean,
I've just figured something out. In order to shut you up, I just got to invite Caroline to the show.
Yeah,
wow.
For sure.
Wow, I finally figured it out. How to get the little brother to shut up.
Yeah, it might only be temporary though.
That's beautiful. So we've been posting, as I said, all Caroline's social media and contact info right on the bottom right of the screen. You can see there's the Caroline at mytravelresearch.com email. By all means, use it. It won't wear out, but believe me, it won't, and it doesn't rust out. It's all good and work in order. We have been, we are your Cobro hosts from the Cobro satellite, beaming down to Staycation Canada of the ehTravel Talk Show. I'm Greg.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm Colin.
And that's Colin. We are the Brothers of Tourism. Tomorrow, you'll find this wonderful interview on our award-winning live travel community feed on the ehCanadaTravel.com website. By all means, please check into that regular. It's a live travel community with hundreds and hundreds of Canadians posting travel information, stories, photos, videos. After that, we will also have this interview on our social media channels. By all means, please follow us after you follow Carolyn Childs on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can follow us as well on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and or Tumblr social media pages. Remember this, Canada. Stop the commissions. Book directly with tourism business websites or with Canada referral websites like ehCanadaTravel.com. Canadians need to stop giving away billions and millions of travel dollars to every booking with the booking.coms of the world. Stop the flow of the 13 and 18% commission fees going into bank accounts of these rich CEO and head offices. Every time you book with these corporates, hotel.com, Expedia.com, you are helping rich billionaires buy more cars, mansion, yacht, planes, vacation cottages, and private islands. However, if you took a second and really think about it, you want a lower price, you want better hosted, you want to connect with your host, you got to book and plan directly. It buys new uniforms when you book and plan directly for your child's hockey team. Remember when it wasn't so tough to get sponsors for your child's raffle or for local events? It's very tough now when you're throwing 13 to 18% of every booking out the window to somebody who has never put $1 of advertising into coming to Canada. So here's our message. Here is our message. Or even been here. Exactly. Here's our message. We want you, more importantly, we want you to help us as an industry in every country. This is not just a Canada issue. Every country. Most importantly, you've got to buy and book direct. You need to save these businesses tens of thousands of dollars. One business I know in Calgary who we work with spends $30,000 a month on these moronic websites when that could have gone into building his hotel, hiring more staff, and employing more jobs, supporting events. So when you do book direct, you're helping to pay mortgages. Most importantly, you're putting food on the tables of hardworking Canadian families who are struggling in the tours. One simple little thing is book with their websites or use our website to find their websites, and you are saving them a whack of money.
It's creating jobs. It's supporting Canada.
It's creating jobs. Where you book makes a difference. Please book direct. I couldn't ask this more than I've been asking it on every episode.
Direct.
Okay, Junior, I'm gonna pass that baton on to you, and let the gift of your gab go crazy.
Oh yeah, well, next week's guest is my job. We have Jorge Zuma. He's from, I hope he has this right, Sabanero Horse Ventures, a horseback riding company in, believe it or not, Costa Rica. He's going to be joined by our special guest, Glenn Stewart of the Horse Ranch in Canada. So if you like horseback riding, you're a horse lover, join us. 7 p.m. next Tuesday.